Hey, nice to meet you. My name is Jason Vong, and in this video, we're going to be going over the best settings for your Sony ZV-1, like color profiles, audio record level settings, autofocus settings, etc. And don't worry, we're going to be going over all the necessary menu items in order, so hopefully you won't get lost. Now, I'm not going to go over every single menu settings on the camera, but if you prefer to have something like that, let me know in the comments down below. Drop a like on this video, and hey, maybe, just maybe, it will be available here. Now, a lot of this walkthrough is based on the fact, assuming you didn't tinker any of the settings in the camera already. But just in case you did and you feel like you messed up somewhere, go ahead and go to tab 5, page 6, settings reset, and hit that initialize button. Before we jump into the menu settings, here are 3 very important buttons on the camera that I want to highlight. Number 1, mode. This is where you select different photo and video modes. Number 2 is the custom button 1. This is defaulted as background defocus. This is what you want to press if you want a blurry or clear background. You can freely turn this on and off even when you're recording. Number 3, custom button 2. This is the product showcase button. If you do any sort of show and tell on video, this turns off face detection autofocus so the camera can focus on any objects that's closest to it. Now, this isn't something that you can freely turn on and off. If you do decide to show some products, you will have to stop the recording, enable product showcase, and then resume recording. Just remember to turn this off if you're just doing a straight talk to the camera and you're not showing off any products. That way, the face detection and the eye detection autofocus keeps you in focus. Moving on, if you want the camera to do everything for you, then go to mode and select intelligent auto video. Essentially, this puts your camera on autopilot. In this mode, you can still adjust your audio level settings, your stabilization, your focus point, and your soft skin effect. But aside from that, there's not a whole lot of things you can change, so you're pretty much done here. However, if you do want to have a little bit more control of your camera, then stay tuned and I'll guide you through this camera right here. The reason why we're going a little in depth is because the intelligent auto video doesn't always necessarily give you the best settings. So instead, what we're going to do is we're going to switch it over to program auto, and it's an auto mode that gives you some flexibility. Here, we're able to tamper with the different color profiles and fine-tune the exposure if needed. Okay, so now let's dive into the menu. Starting off in tab 1, but skipping all the way over to page 5. For focus mode, we're going to keep it on continuous autofocus. For focus area, we're going to change this from zone to wide. There's no reason to really change it to anything else. Touch tracking autofocus would be the other autofocus setting you would use to pinpoint a specific spot to focus on. That's already enabled by default, so all you have to do is just tap on the screen to enable it. If you want to learn more about the other focus methods, you can check out my autofocus guide, link right up here. Moving on to face/eye AF set. Make sure all of these settings are on and the display frames are on. It's a good way to tell if the focus is working or not. Make sure the subject detection is on human. Animal eye autofocus is really just for photos only. Alright, let's move on to page 7. Exposure compensation. This function is actually defaulted to the down button on the wheel here. If you're filming and you notice the camera is making the scene look a little too dark or a little too bright, you can actually use this to make easy adjustments. By going under 00 or to the left, you're making a bright scene darker. By going over 00 to the right, you're making a dark scene brighter. So if the lighting ever looks off to you, just make sure you check your exposure compensation. But when in doubt, just keep it 00. Next up, ISO. I would leave this on auto. This will automatically compensate for the brightness level of the scene. However, for the range, I would keep it at 125 on the lowest end and 6400 on the highest end. But feel free to raise it up if you don't care about noise and grain during the night scenes or the low light scenes and prefer the scene to just be properly exposed. ND filter, keep this off. This is for a different audience. They will know what to do with this. Metering mode, keep it on multi and don't touch it. Face priority in multi-metering, keep this on. Okay, moving on to page 9, white balance, I would keep it on auto. Priority set in auto white balance, I would keep this on standard. So now here's where we'll be talking about colors. For the best true to life color, I would keep dynamic range optimizer on auto and creative style on standard. These two combinations here will give you the best true-to-life color. On the bottom here is picture profiles. These are just another subset of color profiles, different color ranges for post-coloring purposes. If you decide to use any of these, it will override the last two color profiles that we set. Now, this isn't something that I would worry about too much unless, you want to use those nice fancy LUTs that you see in the cinematic videos. And if you do, research Cine4, S-Log, and Hybrid-Log Gamma if you want to get into the whole picture profiles game. Now we are on tab 1, page 10, soft skin effect. This is more of a personal setting. I personally keep this off, but my girlfriend likes it between low to medium. And lastly, for tab 1, page 12, product showcase, keep this off. Again, this is defaulted to custom button 2, which is the trash can button on your camera. So if you didn't change that, that will be the button to toggle between on and off for product showcase. Alright, so now we're at tab 2, page 1, file format. Choose 4K if your computer can handle editing 4K and if you want that super crispy look on YouTube. 30 frames per second is usually best for internet videos. For 1080p HD, you have the option for 24 frames per second, 30 frames per second, 60 frames per second, and 120 frames per second. If you like the 60 frames per second look, you will need to shoot in 1080p 60 frames per second. For longer slow motion recording, I would advise shooting in 1080p 120 frames per second and slowing the footage down in your editing software. Moving on to high frame rate, this is for your super slow motion needs. However, it will only record a few seconds at a time. Record settings, it's going to depend on the frame rate that you're shooting in. 240 frames per second, I find, will yield the best quality for slow motion, but you can go up to 480 or 960 frames per second. Though the quality will drop if you go up in the frame rates. Moving on to the next page, tab 2, page 2, autofocus drive speed and sensitivity. These are defaulted to fast and responsive, but if you find the autofocus pulsing way too much when you're recording a video, dial them down to normal and standard. Moving on, tab 2, page 3, keep audio recording on and audio level display on. For audio record level, these are my recommended settings. If you're using no mics at all, just the onboard mic on the ZV-1, I would keep it at 26. If you're using a shotgun mic, I recommend putting it at 12. And if you're using a lav mic, keep it at 5. However, I highly encourage everyone to experiment because everyone talks at different levels or using different mics, so the results may vary. To set a level that's appropriate to you, I would advise doing a sound check and raise the level until you're close to hitting the red, but not really hitting the red, so probably around -3 decibels. Now, it's okay if it hits the red once in a while, but if it constantly hits the red, then your sound is way too loud, which will be hard to listen to for your viewers. Under no circumstances should you ever turn on wind noise reduction. Keep this off. Steady shot. I recommend using standard. It gives slight in-camera stability. Active offers more stability, but it does crop into the frame a little bit. If you find active stabilizes your footage better when you vlog, I would suggest using a little tripod to extend a bit of distance to compensate for that crop. Unless, you have long giraffe arms. Moving on to tab 2, page 4, record lamp. It's good to have this on so you know that you're recording, because nothing sucks more than you doing a long take just to find out at the end that your camera wasn't recording or you ran out of card space. Moving on to tab 2, page 6, zoom settings. Change this to fast so you can quickly adjust the focal length while you're recording. Otherwise, the zoom speed will be painfully slow. Moving on to tab 2, page 8, custom key for movie, which is the second one right here. While it's already made out for you, I would still change these settings to what they actually are instead of following custom key photos. Because in the future, in case you change something for the photo settings and forget to change it for the video settings, at least then it wouldn't impact your video settings. Function menu set. Again, we're not going to change too much other than a few items, and what's nice is that they separated the quick function menus for photos and videos. The top 2 row focuses on photo settings and the bottom 2 row focuses on video settings. The first item that we're going to change in the photo settings is stabilization. We're going to change that to subject detection instead. That's because stabilization only is applicable to video only, whereas subject detection, I figured, is a little bit more useful for anyone who's shooting a lot of photos of humans and animals. For both quick function menu settings, I would change exposure compensation to grid. Grid is a little bit more helpful to help you frame your shots. But if you don't need grid, feel free to change it to anything else or just leave it as is. Again, just like how we did it for custom key for movies, we're gonna go ahead and change the bottom 2 rows to their own little thing. That way, if we do end up changing anything in the photo side of things, it does not affect anything on the video side of things. Moving on to function of touch operation, just keep this on touch tracking. Moving on to tab 2, page 9, audio signals. So this here gives you a audible confirmation that you're starting and stopping recording, and if you don't find that necessary, you can go ahead and turn that off. Okay, skipping on over to tab 3, page 2, Bluetooth settings. Now, if you have the Sony Bluetooth grip, you can pair it to the camera via the Bluetooth setting here. Go ahead and turn on Bluetooth functions, select pairing, and on the Bluetooth grip, hold down the photo and the T button for approximately 7 seconds, and it will prompt the camera to connect. Once it's connected, just make sure to turn on Bluetooth remote control. Now we are on tab 5, page 1. Delete confirmation, make sure that's cancel first. Auto monitor off, make sure that does not turn off. Tab 5, page 2, power save time. I chose 5 minutes, but this is your choice. Power off with monitor. This is for when you close the screen towards the camera, it will automatically power off. But if you don't like that, go ahead and change it. Auto power off temperature changes to high if you plan on recording 4K videos longer than 10 minutes. Touch operation, make sure this is on. Tab 5, page 3. Now, for those of you who like to plug in the camera to a TV or an external monitor to maybe show off some vlog footage or photos, and if you don't want any of the camera settings on the screen, make sure to turn off info display. That way, it will output a clean feed without any of the camera settings on the screen. Moving on to tab 5, page 4, format. So after you back up your SD card, it is best to insert it back into your camera to empty it out via the format. Now, you don't want to delete stuff from your computer as it may not clean up everything well on the SD card, and it runs the potential risk of corrupting any future data. Formatting in camera just gives it a cleaner start. Tab 5, page 5, for file settings, I like mine to include the dates in my video files so I have a better way of organizing my footage. And lastly, tab 6, page 1, my menu. Now, we've just went through a long list of settings, some of which that we would never ever touch. But for the ones that we often do, we can actually put them all right here for quicker access without us digging through the menu system. Simply just add all the necessary menu items here, and these are my personal recommendations. Feel free to follow along. And then turn on display from my menu. So whenever you hit the menu button, it will always take you back to this page instead. By the way, if you're looking for some of the best accessories for the Sony ZV-1, go ahead and find it somewhere here on the screen. And if you have further questions about using this camera, come join the Sony Alpha Fam Discord. We have a whole community ready to help you out. Guys, thank you so much for watching this video. But before you go, so I've been using Squarespace for about 3 years now, and what keeps me coming back is the ease of use. It is an all-in-one platform to create beautiful and clean websites. No coding knowledge is required thanks to the easy-to-use templates. For 2020, Vivian and I will be adding additional photography and videography resources to our website, so definitely stay tuned to see our progress and our announcement. For now, you can try Squarespace yourself, whether it's a photo portfolio website you can send to your client or an e-commerce for your products. Design it with Squarespace. Head to squarespace.com/JasonVong to save 10% off your first purchase of a website or a domain. Thanks for listening to this message. It does really help my channel out a lot. I'll see you guys in the next video. Peace.